right, welcome back. We'll be talking about security this morning. We've seen incidences in Zamfara State. We've also seen unfortunate incident about the crash in Niger State, the military involvement. So different things just coming through. And to take us through some of these things and probably shed some lights on the matter, we've got Group Captain Sadiq Shehu, who is a security sector reform and defense expert. And sitting beside him is Sani Abdullah Shinkafi, former chairman, Committee on Prosecution of Bandits-Related Offenses for Zamfara State. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for coming on the program today.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Well, that statement that came through from Nigeria Air Force just actually left a lot of people shocked. It appeared as though it just came out from the blues, Group Captain. And reading through it, you get to see Air Commodore Edward Gapquet, who is a director of public relations. They say that explaining that Nigerian Air Force M1171 helicopter on a casualty evacuation mission crashed on the 14th of August at about 1 p.m. near Chukuba village. He says that, well, they discovered, let me just read this part. The aircraft had departed Zungeru Primary School en route Kaduna, but was later discovered to have crashed near Chukuba village in Shiro local government area of Niger State. And of course, efforts are being made to ensure that they rescue the personnel. In your circle, I mean, for outsiders who may think something, this is kind of strange, and they're probably framing. So they discovered that they had crashed, but at the moment, I mean, I'm sure you must have contacted your sources out there to understand what exactly went wrong with this one.
Well, first, as a former Air Force officer myself, and somebody who has done some level of flying training, first, I have to sympathize with the Nigerian Air Force and the families of the people that we don't know. There's no certainty whether people died or not. But in any case, I sympathize with the Nigerian Air Force. And this incident, once more reminds us of the risks and the dangers that our troops, whether in the air or on the ground, are always taking to keep Nigeria safe. Having said that, whenever there is operational tempo, and certainly what I mean by operational tempo, that is the level or number of sorties or the number of operations that have been done, they have risen since this new service chiefs came. Concurrently with that, we are now in the middle of a rainy season, where visibility is low, cloud is very low. I was in Lagos day before yesterday. Anybody who was in Lagos airport for a flight to Abuja, back to Abuja here, I stayed for over 6 hours because all the flights were being cancelled. There are some aircraft that came to Abuja. In fact, there was an Arik, I think, that came to Abuja and had to go back, couldn't land. So the point I am making, when operations are getting more, when the weather is low, also concurrently the chances of having accidents increases.
With some aircraft?
With some aircraft. Now, while a commercial pilot can decide the weather is bad, I cannot go. Unfortunately, that is not the comfort that a military aircraft, they received, a distress call, they have to respond. That's why pilots are trained to operate even when it is 0-0 visibility. What do you mean 0-0? It means you put your hand there in front, you cannot see it because of but you have to respond. So it is not really out of the blues if given the weather conditions, and the situation of responding.
If we use Tucano, if we use the Tucano aircraft,
there's no aircraft that is not affected by weather.
No, I mean in terms of the visibility and the efficiency.
Exactly.
Some are way more advanced than the others. I mean, you know better.
Exactly. But then there is no aircraft. In fact, weather is one of the elements that an aircraft cannot do without. Of course, having a level of equipment on aircraft can reduce the load on the pilot where he'll be able to navigate. But again, you bring it to Kano. What I want people to understand again, every kind of operation has the kind of aircraft that you need. The kind of operation they had in Niger State is not the kind of operation that they will like to. Remember, they said casualty evacuation. The M117, you can Google it, it's a troop carrying and casualty evacuation, aircraft. They went to carry these people. Now, with the weather going, I am speculating because investigation is going on, but I'll give you a practical example, even in commercial flight, these last 2 days, whenever there is weather, whenever there is, a heightened operation, the chances of an air crash happening are increased. But that is not to say we should accept crashes as automatically that they must happen. But I am telling you, over the world, in fact, most air crashes, you will hear either weather, pilot error, or machine error. So to me, you know, this weather is really very challenging for any pilot, whatever kind of aircraft that he is going. Well, so it is not out of this, but at the same time, I have read many, since this incident happened, in fact, the first thing is that bandits have shot an aircraft. You know, again, that is another problem. To the best of my knowledge, and like I always say, me, even though I'm a retired military officer, when I do my security analysis, I don't wholly 100% rely on what I hear from the military for obvious reasons. I will listen to them, and then I will do my own, extrapolation to find where it is. I do not think bandits have the capacity to shoot down aircraft. So that one is even
what about
a no-brainer.
Did you also, maybe you might have come across that as well, the narratives of persons who gave accounts of what happened to the 21 military officers who were attacked by bandits. They said that there was face-to-face combat, firepower was much more than those on the casualty side. They had casualty on both sides anyways. But you heard of that account about involving our military as well, did you?
Yes, there are several accounts that are flying about this, and I'm studying. This happened yesterday. I'm still studying them. I heard of an ambush. I heard of first confrontation. But whatever happens, yes, there were casualties on both sides. Soldiers were lost, and an aircraft that went to provide casualty evacuation. Somehow, the aircraft crashed. But I'm ruling outright. I do not think bandits have the firepower to shoot down an aircraft. But in this kind of treacherous weather, like I said, I've given an example. Anybody who has been flying these days has, experienced some distance. But then the pilot of a military aircraft cannot say, I'm waiting for weather to clear.
No, I'm not talking about the aircraft now. Yes. I'm talking about the face-to-face combat.
Yes,
with those officers who were involved in bandits.
Unfortunately,
so when those kind of things happen, how do the military usually approach it? If you have this scenario when they tell you, well, weapons were superior to certain other ones, how did you approach this kind of scenario?
Well, unless somebody is on the ground, we do not know. So it is not only weapons that determine the outcome of a war. Numbers could determine the outcome of a war. The circumstances, I read somewhere ambush, I am not sure. When you say ambush, it means you walk unsuspectingly into a well-prepared person who was waiting for you. The person that is bringing the ambush will always have advantage because he is waiting for you and you come in. So all these issues, who is dug in, who is working on exposed terrain, all this could determine who has the upper hand in terms of number of people lost, either on the bandit side or on the district. When an ambush is sprung on you, I mean, it takes some seconds before you can really actualize yourself and take a response. Within those seconds, you could lose some people. There's nothing, there's nothing surprising about that. However, you see, again, we should not look at such operations as a game of chess. That is, we take 2 pawns, I take 2 pawns. We always want our troops to have the upper hand. So even if it is one soldier that we lost, it is very important. But then again, everything is in context. As a matter of the work I do, personally as a private security consultant, I keep daily, filings of reports of incidents, who was lost. But what I want people to understand, whenever we're given figures like between February and January, so people died. For the security man, he is counting all numbers, both the bad guys and the good guys. Hardly do you have time to separate how many troops were killed, how many soldiers were killed. That is one thing. And for the military man, unfortunately, there's this saying that when a dog bites a man, it's no news. The truth is that when a soldier, even one soldier is killed, it makes more news than when you kill 5 bandits. That is the actual truth, because we expect always soldiers to kill bandits rather on the other way around. But the reality on the ground is that you could have a bad day, you could have a good day, you could have reversals. So all these things happen. But what I'm saying is that, in any case, what shows that, because again, I must emphasize that the bandits have been employing ambushes.
Guerrilla tactics?
Ambushes. What does it mean? It means our troops must understand and take, force protection measures. There are anti-ambush drills. You have to really recce the area. There are too many stories of ambush. Not only military, even police. I think a couple of years ago, police around Katsina were ambushed. Ambushes, you have to really prepare for ambushes because these people are very treacherous. And to be honest with you, ambush is a very difficult situation to extricate yourself from. Because a person who knows how to ambush, even the area where he's going to spring an ambush is going to be a dead end. Either a ravine as you are coming down the slope. You can imagine if you are coming down the slope and then you are sprung an ambush, how do you climb back? You know, they pick an area where you are put in the killing ground. So ambushes are very treacherous. And I think our troops should try to, you know, put some anti-ambush drills so that before you, because if they say, sometimes it can be, even with fake information, there are bandits here. Yes, there are bandits there, but they are prepared. If you come just walking nonchalantly, you might walk into a killing ground. And then when they open fire for you, because as you are marching, you do not know that you have reached the point of the operation. So maybe with your rifle slung, not ready, and then suddenly, you know, firing from both sides. It's very deadly.
Well, I know that, you know, Mr. Shinkafi here would also want to comment, because you have lived in, I don't want to say bandit territory, but Zamfara State now has developed a reputation, you know, for being bandit terrain. You're a former chairman committee on prosecution of bandit-related offenses. As somebody who is, you know, looking at, even as of yesterday, we understand that bandits still attacked a particular community, and they kidnapped even the emir son of that particular committee, and I think 7 other people as well. Yes, and there have been people who are complaining that, you know, bandits have now taken over command of over about 400 villages in Zamfara alone. We're not even sure of how many other communities bandits are holding sway. Is there going to be an end to this from your own analysis?
Yeah, you see, banditry is an assortment of non-ideological but turned to economically criminal enterprise. So where people are being kidnapped for ransom and armed robbery, killings of innocent life, illegal levies, and a lot of criminal activities in the area. So it has turned to a criminal enterprise, and it is very, very difficult to put an end to this banditry in the shortest period of time. But there are a lot of root factors that causes the armed banditry in Zamfara State. There is a weak security apparatus, proliferation of small arms and light weapons, and poverty, unemployment, bad governance. So with this thing, if you look at all these things, it's a compounded problem which has to be, cannot be solved within the shortest period of time. The root cause of banditry started far back about more than 10 years now, about a decade now. So the former governor came out with a lot of methodology how to end the banditry.
Which of the former governor?
Governor Bello Matawali.
Okay.
He initiated peace dialogue, and the peace dialogue failed, and he applied carrot and stick approach. Those bandits who have decided to surrender and embrace peace, the government accept them. Well, those who refuse to accept dialogue, there was a total military action against them. So the problem we're having now, more than 400 villages are under siege of armed banditry, armed bandits.
Where?
All in Zamfara State. And the problem we have, you know, we have a weak border control. Like where I come from in Shinkapi local government, we share border with the Niger Republic. And we share border with Sokoto State, we share border with Katsina State in Shinkafi local government. So it is very easy for the criminals and the armed bandits to fly and commit a crime in Zamfara and fly to Katsina, fly to Sokoto, fly to Niger. Most of the forests in Niger, in Kaduna, in Katsina, in Zamfara, in Kebbi are connected with Zamfara State forests. So the armed bandits operating in this state turn Zamfara as their epic center. When they go and commit crime in either Kaduna or Katsina, they will come back to Zamfara to seek refuge there. So it is a criminal enterprise business. Many people. When I served in a committee headed by MD Abakar, former Inspector General of Police, a lot of people were indicted in that committee. You see traditional rulers, security agencies are involved, drugs dealers, barons, doctors, quack doctors. So that's why we call it an organized criminal enterprise. So it has a lot of value chain in that crime. So if you look at it, the bandits has no any ideology to promote, but they have turned it to economic drive gang of criminals.
Why was the government not able to achieve at least a very great result as you would have liked at the time? What was the impediment?
You see, the impediment, the constitutional responsibility of security architect of the country lies with the federal government. So, but on the issue of the state governors also, there is issue of bad governance, conspiracy of silence, leading by deception. There are some certain things the governors need to put in place.
Like
so the issue of poverty is one of the root cause of banditry. Weak governance. And the governors of Katsina, Kaduna, Zamfara, Kebbi, Sokoto need to come together to fight the crime as a team. But there is no political way, no government commitment to fight the bandit and criminal element in both the states.
I don't understand it. Why would those states you mentioned be facing this kind of banditry challenge, and then they will not want to come together to address it? It's hard to understand.
Yes, that is because there's no synergy within among the governors. No synergy. There's no synergy because since the inauguration of this new administration, I have never had one day where the governors met to address this issue.
I don't know that in the past, I mean, under the past administration, I think in the early days, and I think I'll be very specific, in the early days, we used to hear former Governor Nasir El-Rufai talk about how the seven governors of the Northwest came together.
Including Niger State.
Yes, to look at banditry in, I think, and attack bandits in a particular forest. I can't remember the name of the forest now. And that they were able to... Benengwari, exactly.
Yes.
They were able to...
forest and the Dansado forest.
They were able to flush out substantially, a significant number of these bandits with the help of the Nigerian military. They funded those operations and they recorded some success. One would now ask, was it that there was now lack of incentive for them to continue? What exactly would have, seen a situation whereby, that particular momentum wasn't sustained when they ran away, and why were they allowed to regroup again? But let me come to you, Colonel. I want to ask you about this particular operations now, because the statement that was released by the Nigerian Air Force was very short with regards to the air crash. I imagine that today we should get a little more clarity on the operations, because if you say that they were going to go and rescue casualties, it means that we're not very certain if that assignment was completed. If they received a distress call, we need to know what became of those who, made that distress call. Were they able to still take another aircraft there to rescue them? Or, what then also happened to the rescue operation to rescue the people who went to rescue other people? I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say. The aircraft, we don't know how many people were on board. We don't know how many people, whether they survived. We hope they did. But in your own estimation, what usually happens when that sort of situation happens? Does Nigerian military, do they send out another aircraft again, or what do they do?
Well, if you send one aircraft and then it came under, it crashed, as the case may be, then you have to assess the situation. But like I said, given the prevailing weather, even as we're talking now, it's not a good weather for aviation. But like I said, the military pilot, or like the civil pilot, sometimes would have to take some risk. Even though the visibility is not good, there's cloud cover, there is rain, which will affect his flying, he has to go. But again, in going, even pilots differ. There are pilots that can operate within even zeros, we call 0-0 weather. That means horizontally, vertically, you don't see anything. You can still try, but then it's a level of expertise. Now, if one pilot goes and he encounters a problem, of course, the Air Force now will do a quick risk analysis. Is it worth sending another aircraft, or do we hold? At the same time, you have comrades that are on the ground forces that you want to. But then it's a decision that the commander will make. Now, having said that, with regards to information, as somebody who has handled, the Director of Public Relations of the Air Force, here I talk generally, and I'm talking with being a military man. Bad news like losses, is always bad news. Military all over the world, they are reluctant, to come up with this. But experience has shown that it's not a good tactics.
So what?
I mean, not to speak. Not to speak. Like just this saying we do in crisis communication that bad news is not like wine. It doesn't get better with time. Sometimes when you don't quickly come out with it, some theories, because like I said now, when you check now, there are people that are saying that bandits have shot another aircraft. This is not the kind of news that you want to go. But then if you don't explain, some people will do their own interpretation as to what happened. So sometimes it's good to be out with the information as quickly as you can. There's what we call even a holding information. But the holding information should be as complete as possible. This is what happened. This is what we have done. We are continuing investigation.
But usually, in some cases, press releases don't answer all those questions.
This is what I'm saying. It should be as complete as necessary. As complete as necessary. Because holding the information, gives room for speculations, as we are seeing now. I was shocked when I checked my distance and saw, in fact, somebody called me to ask me that, is it true that bandits have shot an aircraft? That's how I got the news of that distance. So we should, it's not, nobody wants to, good news, bad news. When you have such of assets, it's a painful thing for the service, it's a painful thing, but then also there's another issue. In the military generally, the person who, the wife of that pilot who was on that mission, she knows her husband is going on a mission. The other engineers or that are on the aircraft cannot be only the pilot, the wife or the relatives, they know that he's going. So sometimes, again, the military holds back to quickly inform the rest of kin, the relatives, because it's not good for a woman just to, it has happened like that before, just opening news, and then you hear that an aircraft, a wife will always know where her husband is going to. So sometimes that causes delay. But apart from the delay, there's always reticence for the military. I do some training on media handling for the security, and always tell them, I use this thing that bad news doesn't get better with time. Out with it, because if you don't come out with it, and in fact, any reasonable person, you will even buy the sympathy. These people, they didn't go on a cruise mission. They didn't go for enjoyment. They went to rescue some people, and this thing happened. So, but holding the information sometimes, for too long, it's not good enough.
They also need to know, maybe you also need to let them know, the media is not their enemy.
Well,
they need to understand that. So it changes mindset and how they do their jobs.
Exactly.
If they understand that.
Exactly.
So it's deeper than what we've just said, but I know they will understand it. Yeah. But Mr. Chinkafi, there was a time in Katsina State when the governor at the time, I think they cut off telecom services to ensure that they stopped informants of banditry. Did that in any way?
Including Katsina, Zamfara, Sokoto.
So,
they have done
in spite of that, did we get any results from this kind of actions?
Yeah, those actions, there was a lot of result. There are some news which are not in the radar of media houses like this, but it may be on the radar of social media networks. But it yielded a lot of result, most especially in Zamfara State, where I come from. It has cut the supply of logistics to unbandit camps cut across the state. They have their various camps cut across the 40 local government of Zamfara State. So it has cut the supply of logistics, arms and ammunition, payment of ransom, and even that time their movement was slowed down. In some villages, they can move to more than 100 motorcycles carrying 33 passengers on the bike and with the AK-47 with 33 magazines. But when the supply was cut off, especially supply of petroleum, and the arms suppliers from the neighboring countries also was cut off because they cannot communicate with the bandits in their camps. So it has yielded a lot of results. The victims, the relation of the victims who are in captivity cannot go to the armed bandit camp and pay ransoms. And the activities of informant was also cut off. The logistics suppliers, those who supply foods, drinks, drugs, were cut off. And it has yielded a lot of results. There is one armed bandit kingpin, his name is called Halilu. Because he doesn't have the food to feed the victims, and he doesn't have the communication to communicate to the relatives of the bandit, he released 278 victims in his captivity in Sububu forest without 1 naira paid. So when we went there when they released them, we went to the forest at Tubali forest to pick them. When they were taken to hospital, about 18 of them died. And there are even some foreigners who are also in his captivity, and he has to release them because he doesn't have the money to feed them, no communication. All the supply, including their arms and ammunition, were cut off. So that is why, as I have said earlier, it's an organized criminal enterprise. People selling motorcycles, football, selling arms, ammunition, food, drugs. So a lot of people are using it to get a lot of money out of it. So that when the communication was cut off, they yielded a lot of results, and the security also have done a lot of tremendous operation during that time. Because the security are using, I think, Toraya and this Wi-Fi, walkie-talkie, and they have achieved a lot of meaningful results. Like what is happening now in Zamfara. The good people of Zamfara State, or the northwestern state, most especially in Zamfara, we are calling Mr. President to save our soul. Because from Gusau to Dansadao is a death trap. From Gusau to Sokoto is no going area. From Gusau to Anka also is a death sentence. From Gusau to Shinkafi, the same thing. From Shinkafi to Isa to Sokoto, it's a death sentence. From also Kauraj Namoda Junction to Zurimi, Gurubim Ore, Jibia is another dead zone. And also from Zaria to Huntua to Gusau up to Safi is another dead zone. So what I'm saying, there is need for the service chiefs, new service chiefs, to change the narratives.
When you say dead zone,
and they need to be equipped, because the armed bandits in Zamfara State has more sophisticated weapons than the Nigerian military police put together in Zamfara State, in all of their armories.
When you say dead zone, you mean that bandits have taken over those places? Is that correct? Or you're saying that?
Yes, I have to say it without any apology, because our people are in debt. A lot of people, when we did that MD Gusau committee, more than, as at that time, not from 2015 to 2019, more than 3,650 people were killed. More than 6,500 people were kidnapped. More than 400,000 people were displaced and turned to IDPs. Houses, vehicles were destroyed, foodstuffs. So the danger of even this banditry, this year, rainy season, people cannot go to their farms and farm. So close of going to harvest. So there's going to be a serious food shortage and hunger and starvation in Zamfara, in the northwest region. The bandits are imposing levies to locals. You have 20 million, 20, 40 million, 50 million. And they were working with these sophisticated weapons, rocket launchers, grenade, AK-47, all types of sophisticated weapons. So So there's need for the new service chiefs to have a synergy with other sister agencies to fight this criminality in Zamfara also and in Northwest region.
Well, let's go to our colleagues Ayo and Buki.
Thank you, Chamberlain. Well, let me begin with you, Group Captain. Much has been said, no doubt, about the crash of that aircraft. But what is worrisome is it's been quite a few in recent years. Between 2015 and this year, quite a number have been reported. In 2015, for instance, a NAF helicopter was said to have crashed in Ribadu Cantonment, the old NDA in Kaduna State, killing all 7 passengers. I don't know if there is any report on that one. In 2017, NAF also confirmed one of its helicopters, Augusta 109 light utility, crashing while undertaking a liaison mission in the northeast. And it suffered a technical mishap and crashed into a pool of water in Borno State. Luckily, no life was lost in that one. In 2021, February to be precise, 7 NAF personnel on their way from Abuja to Minna, Niger State capital, died when their plane crashed after takeoff from the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja. On the one hand is the challenge that, and then this one, on the one hand is the challenge that these things happen, loss of lives, most importantly. I mean, we can always talk about the infrastructure that is lost. On the other hand is that hardly do we ever have, should I say, closure or any significant report that can say, okay, this is what happened, and all of that. So is there any end in sight? Anyone would wonder, do you see a situation where we don't have this kind of reports? And even if those things do happen, we never have to come to the situation where we find ourselves at this moment discussing this, and then it passes, only for us to wait for another one.
Hello, talking to me?
Group Captain, that's for you.
Unfortunately, the issue of air crashes and military operations, there's nobody that can give a guarantee that will not have air crashes. However, there is a level of number of crashes per number of hours flown that should be acceptable, and there is when you pass that minimum, it should give a cause for concern. Certainly, I will be honest to say that the number of crashes that the Nigerian Air Force have been receiving over the years is becoming an alarming rate. What happens after a crash? The professional thing to do is to find, for every crash, there is one main factor and then there are other contributing factors. What you normally do is to objectively look at why that aircraft crashed. Of course, it could be reasons beyond the pilot, it could be the machine, it could be the weather, anything. And when it has to do with something that, remedial action should be taken, whether it is change in training, whether change in safety features, then that should be included. We should be, and I'm sure the Air Force is not. I'm even certain that the Air Force, the Air Force management, they are really concerned about the number of crashes. What we'll always encourage them to do is to honestly investigate these crashes, identify the root causes, and then review. There is no. In fact, just recently, I think last week or a couple of weeks, the United States Air Force also had crashes. There is no Air Force that will not have crash. And the more, the number of operations you're flying, the more likelihood that there will be crash.
Group Captain,
when weather is bad, like in this time, there is likelihood
my sincere apologies for butting in. While what you're saying, I mean, it makes, a world of sense to even consider those things. Two things are troubling. Number one is the fact that a host of them are due to technical mishaps. Are those unavoidable? And then the men that, the personnel that are lost, do we even factor in the fact that they have lives, they have destinies, they have families that look up to them? So that's, for me, is what is troubling and what I'm very sure a host of Nigerians will be very, very concerned about, because it's not just easy. I mean, if you lost a car, you can replace it. If you lost a material, you can replace it. But human lives, that's a whole kettle of fish altogether. So losing human lives to what some will call avoidable technical mishap. I mean, is it unavoidable?
Well, like I said, for any air crash, there could be several reasons. It could be some are avoidable, some are not, they are not within the control of the pilot. Yes, certainly, like you said, you could replace an aircraft, but you cannot replace the life of a pilot or an engineer or a technician or a navigator who is on that aircraft. So certainly that should be what should concern us. But at the same time, like I said, the Nigerian Air Force, like any other Air Force in the world, when crashes happen, you try to find the root causes. You try to put remedial measures so that it does not reoccur. So certainly, again, there is no gainsaying the fact that the number of crashes happening, like you read out, which are figures which I have at my fingertips, it calls for concern, and it calls for the Nigerian Air Force to dig in more. And I do not think the Air Force management are oblivious of the fact that the number of crashes are becoming alarming and they need to do something. So, but with the issue of, loss of lives, it is very, very unfortunate, and it is the same. But then, again, whether a military pilot, whether a soldier, whether even a policeman going on operation, unfortunately, is a profession which, I may come back or I may not come back. That is what makes the military or security profession very unique. And I think with due respect, our families know that. Every wife or husband or brother or mother wants to hear that her husband or her relative is back. But unfortunately, that is the reality of the profession. Sometimes you go, you may not come back. But we should try as much as possible. We should not accept it as a matter of course that this such thing should happen. So that is why every effort should be made, to identify the root causes and to put remedial action so that such things do not happen. And I'm sure, like I said, the Air Force is concerned. I belong to many, communication groups, groups of this. I am out of the military, but I'm within the military. This issue you are raising, I am sure has been occupying the minds of the Nigerian Air Force.
Well, let me ask you, Mr. Shinkafi, what is also troubling about this, which a number of people will want to raise, is that, on the one hand is the fact that this has happened. On the other hand is that, there are a number of people will be wondering, hey, the National Assembly would budget money for defense and a host of equipment will be procured at the same time. So one will be wondering, Mr. Shinkafi, if you think that there should be questions asked, particularly concerning these infrastructure. Hosts have been procured, some others are being procured. Do you think, we're asking the right questions, particularly maybe at the National Assembly level, whether or not we have justified, and we're not just excusing the fact that, okay, this has happened, it's just one of those things that happens, because the more of this equipment we lose, the less likely we'll be able to deal with the issues, such as the ones that you have raised earlier.
A lot of money were budgeted in every fiscal year for security personnel to buy equipment and other gadgets. But it is worrisome the way and the manner the federal government is making huge budgetary provision in buying arms and ammunition and this security equipments, but yet it is not yielding result. In my own opinion, most of this aircraft or most of the weapons are being bought, the way I'm looking at it, maybe are not in modern technology. So there is need for the security to judiciously use the money budgeted for them for their operations, and to buy new technological equipment to fight crime and criminality in Nigeria. Because as we have said, this issue of aircraft crash is something that has to be taken care of by the appropriate security agencies, most especially the management of the Air Force. So there should be a check and balances in the money budgeted for the procurement of this military equipment.
Let me quickly follow up on that, Mr. Shinkafi. I'd like to find out from you, as former chairman, Committee on Prosecution of Bandits, if you have begun to see what is expected to be seen in the fight against banditry in that regard. I ask because since the declaration of bandits as terrorists by the federal government, was that not supposed to sort of change the rules of engagement between the military, in how the military engaged the bandits, so to speak? Was it not supposed to categorize banditry as a federal offense? Were we not supposed to see onwardly more decisive prosecution of bandits? As a matter of fact, former governor of Kaduna State, Mr. Nat'l had said that the government should go bomb the bandits' base. So since that time that you were former chairman committee on prosecution of bandits, have you seen satisfactorily, how the military was supposed to engage bandits in the fight against their activities?
The military engagement against fight against banditry in Zamfara State, also in the Northwest region, since the declaration of armed bandit as a terrorist group by the federal government, there was no aggressive military actions against the bandit in their hideout in the Northwestern region, because there is shortage of personnel. Anytime you call a military, there is a banditry attack in a particular village, they will tell you until they get order from the above, from the superior officers. So from 1 to 2 hours before the arrival of the military, the bandits have committed their crime and criminality and left. So this is what we are suffering in Zamfara State, also in the Northwest region. There is need for training and retraining, and there is need for the military personnel to equip their military with the modern equipment in order to tackle this armed banditry in the armed banditry affected areas. With the declaration, like in Zamfara State, we have faced a lot of challenges, especially during the rainy season. It is very difficult for the fighter jet to fly to other bandit hideout in the forest, especially in the Dansado forest, in Sububu forest, in Gidan Jaja forest. A lot of forests in Zamfara State, we have deep forests. So it is very difficult for the military to tackle the bandit in their hideout. So there is need for military to have some modern equipment where they can fight these terrorists in this banditry affected area.
The number of challenges with the process: inadequate manpower, inadequate equipment, lack of modern equipment, and the like. How can we then reconcile the amounts that the former administration spent on military operations against insurgency and banditry in Nigeria's north with what we have currently in the fight against criminality, i.e. banditry and insurgency in the north?
There is need for forensic audit and the finances budgeted to military, because each and every year you hear the federal government will budget money in trillions, yet it doesn't yield any result. So there is need for check and balances and forensic audit within the military, even in all the security apparatus in Nigeria. Today, when you buy maybe 500 Hilos vehicle in the annual budget. Next year, you hear also they will buy another 1,000 operational vehicles. Yet, this vehicle, when you want them to go for operation, they will tell you they don't have the motor, no engine, no tire, no this, no that. So there is need for forensic audit on the money appropriated to these security agents. Each and every kobo budgeted must be accounted for, and they must give an account for it before another money were also appropriated in next fiscal year. So these are some of the challenges: no proper forensic audit on the money appropriated to these security agencies. So that is why you see the war have not ended for more than 10 years or 20 years. These terrorists have been rampage, and they have taken the country to ransom. So each and every zone in Nigeria, this is geopolitical zone, we have some peculiar security challenges. So there is need for, as I have said earlier, for forensic audit, for check and balances within the security agencies.
Let me now come to you, Group Captain Shehu. I'd like you to respond very briefly to what Mr. Abdullahi has said, particularly with regards to your initial explanation about the killings of soldiers in Zamfara State and in Niger State. If I could refer to your words, you said, sometimes there are bad days, for the Nigerian military, and then that's when it becomes news. But shouldn't the military have prepared for every context of the situation, given the number of years that has been committed, not just years now, and resources that has been committed to the fight against banditry and insurgency?
Well, your question is double-edged, but let me respond to the last bit you said about the resources. I am completely in agreement with Mr. Abdullahi. Looking naira for naira, dollar for dollar, the last administration, that the outgoing administration, I do not think there is any administration that budgeted as much money as that administration did. And when we are talking of budgeting, for those of us that study, defense budgeting, we have to also understand that apart from what we read in the annual budget, there are a lot of extra budgetary releases that are done which are not captured in the budget. So, but the point we are seeing is sometimes it's not the amount of money you budget. I always say this, it is how you use the money. From the National Assembly, if I read from how the budget, I have figures which shows me in one particular year, the military's budget, about 70% is for personnel costs. The other point? 70% is for personnel costs. There was a year that was captured. Apart from that, when you go and examine the budget in itself, you see a lot of construction, you see a lot of renovation. What people are missing is that you are looking at the larger picture that they say it's also billion, but not for the actual things that improve this. I am being very honest here. If you have an operation going, I think your emphasis should be on issues that increase the operational capacity of the armed forces. It's not the time to be building universities. It's not the time to be building new units. It's not the time to be doing new divisions while you have not even increased the number of recruitment. So here, everybody is to blame. From the National Assembly, because they see this budget, they see what it is tied for, to the executive that do not follow up. The money is being budgeted, there is no doubt. And like I said, I want you to note that. It's not only the budgeted money. There are a lot of extra budgetary releases, sometimes even as much as what was released in the annual budget. But nobody is following the money. The National Assembly must take that. But then oversight of military with due respect. The security sector is a kind of opaque situation. For an average National Assembly member, if really he is patriotic, he has to take extra effort to even digest what this budget means. When they say allowances, you need to know what allowances. You don't go approving things that have nothing to do, ceremonies, building. I'm not saying university, I'm an educated person. It's not useful. But if you ask me, when a military is at war, you cannot come and bring budget for me and be telling
priorities
me to but you have to prioritize. Right. So therefore, that is the problem. We don't follow up.
Mr. Shinkafi, while you made your comments, part of your opening comments, you indicated that in the committee that you were in, several people were indicted.
Yes.
You spoke about military personnel, community chiefs. What happened to them?
Well, there was a judicial commission of inquiry, which the governor constituted. And along the line, there's a lot of interest going on. When those people who are indicted, most especially some traditional rulers, about 4 emirs were dethroned from their throne. Namely,
Any prosecution?
I think the case is still going on.
What about the military? Were they serving or former military persons?
There are some of the cyber militaries who were indicted in that report. Yet, when we write an invitation to the military command, they refused to release them to come and appear for questioning.
Serving military officers?
Serving. Got to me everywhere. I'm part of the committee.
What about ex-military officers?
And on that report, we have never indicted as military officers, where we indicted as police personnel. Were indicted. Traditional rulers were indicted.
But nobody was prosecuted?
Up to now, they were not prosecuted because some of them went to court to challenge the report.
So where's the report now?
The report is with the Zamfara state government.
In those areas that you mentioned, okay, go ahead. You want to finish that?
So some of them went to court, and the case still pending in the court. And as I have said, traditional rulers, what do you call them? This butcher, Sarkin power. Many of them were indicted in that report. But people went to court to challenge the report, and there's a lot of politics which was played out. People are playing politics with the report, saying all kinds of things.
Yeah,
so the major problem we're having in Zamfara State, which I have not seen, is only God will end this issue of banditry in Zamfara State. Because even the politicians in Zamfara State
are involved.
You
didn't indict any one of them?
Yes, they are involved because they are playing politics with the security of lives and property of our people, of innocent people in the state.
So would you say,
during the electionary campaigns,
as a wrap up,
politicians were using insecurity as a yardstick to gain popularity.
Would you say that the call of the former Zamfara State Governor, Yerima, was Senator Yerima, would you say that it was misplaced?
It's a misplaced of priority, I'm telling you. Because the former Governor Bello Motawale have tried this dialogue with the bandit. So I have seen no reason why people will be calling for dialogue with the bandit, because these bandits are not sincere. And most of these bandits are not only locals, that is foreigners.
Were there mining activities in all those places? Why foreigners?
There is illegal mining activities. As you know, the root cause of this thing has a lot of segments. As I have said earlier, corruption, unemployment, bad governance, poverty, proliferation of small and lighter weapons.
All right, gentlemen.
So a lot of things has come to play out.
We need to go. We appreciate both of you for coming on. Sani Abdullahi Shinkafi, former chairman, Committee on Prosecution of Bandits and the Related Offenses for Zamfara State. We've also had Group Captain Sadiq Shehu, who is a security sector reform and defense expert. Gentlemen, thank you both for coming on today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
While we began the paper review, I mean, there was a statement that came through from the GM Public Affairs, Gabodin of NNPC, where he did say all of those about rumors of increasing petrol prices. He says, "Dear esteemed customers, we at NNPC Retail value your patronage, and we do not have the intention to increase our PMS pump prices as widely speculated. Please buy the best quality products at the most affordable prices at our NNPC retail stations nationwide." So we hope this will not be the calm before the storm. We will be back in a moment. Stay on with us.